My heart sank as I listened to my husband's desperate voice crackling through the phone that day. His panicked words came rushing out, telling me his credit card wasn't working and he couldn't leave the hotel. I could hear the frustration and anger in his voice as he demanded I fix it immediately, like a child throwing a tantrum when things don't go their way. Looking back now, I can trace the path that led to this moment, back to my college days when my whole world turned upside down. I'm Shannon Smith, and at 33, I serve as the Vice President of Adventure Company, but my journey up to this point wasn't an easy one. The loss of my parents during my college years left me completely shattered, forcing me to juggle multiple part-time jobs just to stay in school. I can still remember those endless nights, working late shifts and struggling to keep my eyes open during morning classes. Life has a way of throwing unexpected curves at us, doesn't it? Some days, I barely had enough money for food, let alone tuition. My parents' tragic death, hit by a car that ran a red light, changed everything in the blink of an eye. Before that terrible day, I was just like any other student, spending carefree afternoons in cafes with friends, studying and dreaming about the future. But grief and financial reality hit me like a tidal wave, washing away that simple life I had taken for granted. The biggest challenge was figuring out how to pay for my education. Scholarships helped, but they weren't enough. That's when Ethan Brown, my classmate, approached me with an unexpected proposition. He suggested we start a business together, believing that my talent combined with his business skills could lead to success. Ethan was highly respected on campus, the kind of person everyone looked up to and admired. Starting a company was daunting, and I remember voicing my concerns about juggling it with my part-time jobs. But there was something about Ethan's warm smile and understanding eyes that made me believe it was possible. He assured me everything would be all right, and his confidence was contagious. His charisma made even the impossible seem achievable, like a lighthouse guiding ships through stormy seas. In that moment, I felt a desperate need to break free from my circumstances. We decided to take the risk and start our business while still in college. The early days were tough, banks kept turning us down for loans, but we persevered. As a small startup, we faced another major hurdle: recruiting talented people wasn't easy. Despite our job postings, we received few applications, and finding qualified candidates felt like searching for a needle in a haystack. Thanks to Ethan's level-headed judgment and spot-on advice, we gradually built a stronger team. Our partnership grew stronger with each challenge we overcame together, developing a deep trust that went beyond just business. By the time I turned 33, I hardly recognized my life anymore. I realized I was spending almost every waking moment at work, though I didn't regret the effort that had paid my way through college. I felt proud of the company we'd built from nothing but determination and hard work. Our business was thriving, with both our workforce and revenue growing substantially over the past decade. Yet watching my close friends getting married and building families, it hit me that my life revolved entirely around work. During moments of quiet reflection, I began questioning my lifestyle choices. One day, after a lunch meeting, I suddenly opened up to Ethan about these feelings. I told him how seeing friends my age getting married had started me thinking. When Ethan asked what I meant, I explained that I'd been wondering if focusing solely on work since graduation was really the right path. He asked if I wanted to get married, then thoughtfully considered my response. Ethan then shared his wisdom, suggesting that if I wasn't satisfied, seeking change might be worth considering. He reminded me that life wasn't just about work, and the same applied to marriage. His words gave me permission to reevaluate my life's direction. Though I'd never seriously considered anything beyond work before, Ethan's encouragement prompted me to start looking for a partner. A friend recommended a reliable dating app, and I dove right in. I scheduled dates after work, spending evenings at restaurants, bars, and movie theaters. After several dates, I met Alexander Williams on my fourth try. He showed understanding about my busy schedule, never getting angry when I had to cancel dates. Our relationship progressed smoothly, and we both had marriage in mind from the start. Just 2 months into dating, we decided to get married. But right after the wedding, Alexander suddenly quit his job, announcing he would become a full-time house husband. I couldn't hide my shock at this unexpected turn of events. When I asked what had happened, he calmly told me he would take care of everything at home while I focused on work. I pressed him about making such a decision without consulting me. He dismissively explained that since I earned enough, there was no problem with him handling all household duties. His response left me speechless. He clearly intended to rely completely on my income. Though I was earning well, we weren't financially secure enough for him to just quit working. I pleaded with him to at least find a part-time job, but no matter how much I begged, he wouldn't listen. He firmly declared he was done with corporate work, insisting my income was enough. His self-centered attitude left me speechless, but being newlyweds, I couldn't bring myself to argue. To make matters worse, he started demanding that I send money to his parents. He claimed that families should help each other, reminding me that as a house husband, he was depending on me. I might have understood supporting his parents if he had been earning money himself, but having this responsibility thrust upon me felt completely unreasonable. My suspicions grew as his parents frequently made sarcastic comments, mistakenly believing I was forcing Alexander to do all the housework. During a recent dinner with his parents, they began their usual criticism. His mother set down her fork and accused me of making Alexander do all the housework, suggesting that as his wife, I should be the one handling domestic duties. Despite my efforts to improve the situation, his father joined in with more criticism. I don't know how Alexander had explained things to them, but they clearly saw me as the villain. When I protested, explaining that Alexander had chosen to be a house husband, he whispered for me to calm down and apologize, promising to clear up the misunderstanding later. Despite his reassuring words, I felt frustrated by his unwillingness to defend our position in the moment. Each time I asked if he'd talked to his parents about resolving the situation, he dodged the question, saying he hadn't found the right opportunity. Rejected by his parents and unsupported by my husband, I began contemplating divorce in my despair. Then came an unexpected discovery. During a hospital visit for persistent stomach pain, I was pregnant. I rushed home, my heart filled with a mixture of shock and joy, eager to share the news with Alexander. His surprisingly calm response to my announcement left me confused. There was no shared happiness between us afterward. He simply sank into the couch and started watching TV, as if my words meant nothing. The joy I had felt evaporated instantly, replaced by disappointment and sadness that seeped into my heart. His indifference cut me deeply. Unable to hold back my tears, I retreated to our bedroom. His lack of interest made me realize how far the love we once shared had faded. Here we were, about to become a family, and he showed no signs of happiness. I realized there was no future for us anymore. Though thoughts of divorce loomed large, making such a decision while pregnant wasn't simple. I wondered if I could really raise a child without a father. Perhaps things would change after the baby was born. Maybe my husband and his parents would change their attitude. Clinging to this faint hope, I decided to continue with our life for the time being. As time passed, I noticed an unusually large charge on my credit card statement one day. That's when I realized my card wasn't in my wallet. Worried it might have been lost, stolen, or fraudulently used, I anxiously brought up the issue with my husband. To my surprise, he casually admitted to using it, telling me not to cancel the card. Apparently, after quitting his job and depleting his savings, he had taken my credit card from my wallet and started using it without saying a word. I confronted him about using my card without permission, especially since I was already giving him money for household expenses. When I demanded to know what he'd spent so much on, he angrily replied that he needed money to spend freely and it was his right to use it as he pleased. I shot back that if he wanted spending money, he should get a job and use his own earnings. But no matter how much I pleaded, he absolutely refused to work. He insisted he was done with corporate life and my income was enough. The man I had trusted to help support our home barely cooked, relying mostly on takeout, and hardly cleaned. When I complained, he would shout that since I was earning money, what was the problem? He was my husband and a house husband, so he had the right to live this way. Finally, he stormed out, saying he was going back to his parents' house. As anger and sadness welled up inside me, I wondered, isn't family supposed to support each other? Here I was pregnant, and I seriously doubted whether he was thinking about our future as a family at all. I had worked so hard to build my career and income. Just because we were family didn't mean I could accept him making large purchases without consulting me. I took deep breaths repeatedly, overwhelmed by tears and anger. That night, he suddenly returned with his parents in tow. They burst through the door and immediately launched into harsh criticism. They accused me of preventing Alexander from fulfilling his responsibilities by making him do housework. They lectured that as a woman, I should be cooking, cleaning, and doing laundry instead of using work as an excuse to avoid my duties. My anger reached its peak. Being pregnant and unwell, I couldn't bear being attacked like this. Having already decided on divorce, I responded with cold fury, telling them not to act superior when they knew nothing, warning they would regret this. My icy words seemed to shock them. I realized there was no point trying to reason with in-laws who had been deceived by their son. Even when I explained he wasn't working, they refused to believe me. I decided to say nothing more. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling they would regret this someday. The pain of betrayal by my trusted husband pierced my heart. That's when my mother-in-law pulled papers from her bag and threw them on the dining table. She demanded I sign the divorce papers, if I wouldn't reflect on my behavior and change. I stared at the documents, never imagining they would present them to me like this. I had actually been planning to propose divorce myself, anticipating it might become a legal battle. My hands trembled as I signed the papers, barely able to hold the pen. Suppressing my anger, I forced myself to sign and said, "It's over." After that, my husband and father-in-law left. A wave of despair washed over me as I realized I'd forgotten to get my credit card back. Suddenly, an intense pain shot through my abdomen, sharper than anything I'd ever felt before. I collapsed to the floor. My breathing became rapid, and sweat poured from every pore. My vision blurred as I felt my body going numb with unbearable pain. I tried to ask what was happening, but the words barely escaped my lips. With each breath, the pain intensified, and my body wouldn't respond to my commands. Desperately, I crawled across the floor searching for my phone. My fingers trembled as I clawed my way forward, summoning what little strength I had left. Fighting against the searing pain that threatened to steal my consciousness, I finally managed to make the call. With a trembling voice, I explained my situation. "Please help, I'm having severe pain. I'm pregnant." After giving my address, I ended the call. The pain wouldn't subside, and my vision grew increasingly blurry. I collapsed there, waiting for the ambulance, praying desperately, "Please protect my baby." Through the agony, I kept telling myself, I have to stay strong for my child. I was rushed to the hospital, facing a sudden risk of premature labor. The doctors diagnosed my condition as stress and exhaustion induced, and I was immediately admitted. I must have lost consciousness after arriving at the hospital, overwhelmed by fear for my baby's safety. After 2 days in a coma, I finally opened my eyes in the hospital bed. The pain had subsided, and my body felt somewhat relaxed. As consciousness suddenly cleared, I checked my stomach, relieved to still feel the presence of new life within. I took a deep breath. The quiet environment and soft light streaming through the window comforted me as I breathed deeply. Gradually, my memories returned: the severe abdominal pain, the emergency ambulance ride, and the terrifying moment I lost consciousness. While grateful to be safe, my thoughts turned to my husband. I remembered giving his contact information to the paramedics, but he hadn't reached out. I tried calling him multiple times, but he didn't answer. Anxiety began to overwhelm me. On the fifth try, he finally answered, his voice strange and the connection poor. He demanded to know why I was calling at this hour. I explained about being hospitalized for signs of premature labor after he and his parents left, asking him to bring some necessities. His response left me speechless. "That's tough, but I'm abroad right now, so I can't help." Shocked, I asked why he was overseas. "I'm enjoying a vacation in Singapore." "Don't interrupt my time with my parents, it's something you could never understand," he said. I was at a loss for words. I couldn't understand how an unemployed person could afford international travel, but his emphasis on it being his way to give back to his parents suggested he had some source of funds. With a trembling voice, I simply said, "I understand," and hung up. I immediately went to the hospital gift shop, bought a pen and envelope, and made a phone call to a specific number. The next day, my husband called me in a panic, demanding I fix his credit card situation so he could get home. I canceled the card, I replied calmly, though anger boiled inside me. "What? How am I supposed to pay for anything? What am I supposed to do?" he asked with increasing desperation. "That's your problem," I replied firmly. "This isn't just my problem, I'm still your husband," he protested. I couldn't help but laugh. "What's so funny?" he asked, clearly confused. "Our marriage is practically over. The divorce proceedings are already in motion," I told him, and his voice shifted to a pleading tone. "Please, just let me use the card temporarily so I can get home. Please," he begged. But my heart remained unmoved. "Figure it out yourself. You're no longer my concern," I replied coldly and hung up. 3 days later, Ethan, my friend and company CEO, came to visit. He told me not to worry about work and just focus on resting. I smiled, noting how strange it felt to do nothing. Suddenly, my hospital room door burst open. My ex-husband and his parents, fresh from their overseas trip, barged in. My husband immediately started shouting about having to borrow money from friends to get home. His mother joined in, demanding to know how I could do this to them. His father added his voice, raging about their ruined vacation plans. While Ethan and several passers-by watched, I maintained my composure. "He used my credit card for the trip without telling me," I stated simply. The room's atmosphere instantly changed. His parents exchanged shocked and confused glances, their faces reflecting the impact of a thunderbolt. I continued, "Right after our marriage, he declared he would be a house husband and quit his job. But he barely helped with housework." As my words quietly echoed through the room, his parents' faces showed clear distress. "Alexander isn't working? That can't be true. He told us he had a job," his mother said with a trembling voice, her eyes showing obvious anxiety and confusion. His father stared at me with a mix of shock and disappointment. "In fact, he's been unemployed this whole time. I've been supporting the household alone." Upon hearing this, his parents looked at their son with expressions of disbelief. Their eyes reflected betrayal and deep disappointment. His mother bit her lip hard while his father clenched his fists in anger. My ex-husband could only avert his eyes under their sharp gazes, unable to say a word. That's when Ethan interrupted, addressing Mr. Williams. There's something you should know. I'm the CEO of Shannon's company. In our conversations, I learned about Alexander's unemployment and how Shannon has been supporting the household. While Ethan spoke, my in-laws' faces showed shock and disbelief. He calmly presented his business card and showed them the company website. They accepted his card with trembling hands, unable to deny the truth, their expressions a mix of shock and confusion. Our company is actually a major client involved in crucial projects at Mr. Williams' former workplace. However, we can't continue working with dishonest partners, Ethan explained. This can't be happening. What about the project, Alexander? How will you explain this? My father-in-law's voice trembled, barely able to speak. He looked completely devastated. My mother-in-law covered her face with her hands, asking in disbelief, how did it come to this? Their faces had turned pale, their despair evident. Wait, Shannon, please. Help me. I want to start over, my ex-husband desperately grabbed my hand, begging. His eyes showed fear and desperation, his hands trembling. Given how he had ignored and acted selfishly toward me in the past, his pleading wasn't surprising. It's too late. I can't forgive your past actions. This is the end, I replied firmly, pulling my hand away. Please, help me, he begged again, dropping to his knees. That's when Ethan presented some important documents. Can you say the same thing after seeing these? The documents detailed Ethan's investigation into my ex-husband's behavior, revealing how he had lied about sending money to his parents and used it for himself, recklessly spending my income. We cannot forgive anyone who harms our valuable partners, Ethan stated firmly, his eyes showing strong determination. I've already contacted lawyers, and you should prepare for compensation, Ethan informed them with a calm smile. In that moment, I felt overwhelming gratitude and relief for everything Ethan had done. Lying in my hospital bed, I gazed out the window at the scenery. Since that day, the dark clouds have cleared, and I've recovered from the risk of premature labor. Finally, I was able to give birth to a healthy baby. My heart was filled with mixed emotions, joy at the birth of new life and exhaustion from delivery. Ethan and my colleagues came to celebrate, and I'm spending fulfilling days. After leaving the hospital, I moved into a new apartment Ethan had arranged. Thanks to his thoughtfulness, he chose a location where my ex-husband and in-laws wouldn't find us. This secured our privacy and safety, freeing us from their unwanted interference. My new home is in a quiet area away from urban chaos, surrounded by rich greenery and peaceful silence. It's an ideal environment, free from city noise, where I can spend quiet moments taking walks in nature and breathing deeply. Here, I'm starting a new life with my newborn. While expectations and anxieties about this new beginning intersect, the presence of supportive people around me greatly eases those worries. Several weeks have passed since giving birth, and I'm currently on maternity leave. Spending peaceful time with my baby one day, Ethan visited again, bringing new living supplies. Seeing us, he asked with concern, "How are you doing, Shannon?" The baby looks healthy, thankfully. I think that's what matters most. Thank you, Ethan. I've made it this far thanks to your unwavering support, I expressed my gratitude. After inviting Ethan in, I gently laid the baby in the crib and prepared hot coffee for him. Ethan seemed slightly tense as he began to bring up an important matter. I need to tell you something about your ex-husband and his parents, Ethan began. What happened? I asked. Ethan revealed he had been monitoring their situation to ensure our safety. He told me they had sold their house to pay compensation and were now living in a rundown apartment. Laying several documents on the living room table, he continued his report. My ex-husband was struggling with day labor at construction sites, his lazy habits unchanged, making it difficult for him to adapt. My former mother-in-law was working 2 jobs, as a supermarket cashier during the day and on a sandwich production line at night. She was suffering from back pain but couldn't afford time or money for treatment due to her busy schedule. My father-in-law, hampered by his age and lack of relevant experience, had to work as both a supermarket cashier and night janitor. Mixed emotions welled up in my chest as I listened, but I knew their current struggles were the result of their own choices. A momentary flash of sympathy quickly faded. "Well, that's what happens when you betray people," I said quietly. Ethan nodded in agreement, adding, "You're right. You're finally free now. Let's focus on your happiness and your baby's future." I completely agreed with Ethan's words, feeling strongly that my life ahead was for myself and my child. Past difficulties and pain were behind me now, and I felt ready for a new beginning. Through my lawyer, I demanded child support and repayment of the savings they had used without permission. Though they claimed they couldn't pay, I was no longer uncertain. For my child's future and mine, I faced them with determination. I'll never think about marriage again. From now on, I'll live happily with my child, I declared with a smile. Ethan encouraged me, "That's the right decision. You're incredibly strong, and you deserve all the happiness ahead." Our future now focuses on finding happiness with my child. This new beginning represents a confident step forward, the start of a new journey for us. I've been waiting to share my story with all of you. Today, I want to speak from my heart to those who have walked this journey with me, as if we're sitting in a cafe, sharing coffee, looking into each other's eyes. Have you ever felt your life change 180 degrees in an instant? I've experienced that sensation multiple times. My life has been a storm of emotions, difficult decisions, and moments that made me re-examine everything I believed about love and family. If you've followed my story, you know I thought I'd found love, married, and found my life partner. I believed I would walk alongside someone who would share both joyful and difficult moments. But reality often hits us in the most unexpected ways, even when we try to ignore or soften it. How many people have lived thinking they were living a dream, only to wake up to a nightmare? I thought I had found true love. I believed marriage would be a safe place where I could be myself, where my efforts would be appreciated and love returned. But as time passed, I realized it was a castle made of paper, ready to collapse at the first breath of truth. I don't want to sound like I'm seeking sympathy or complaining. Rather, I hope this conversation serves as a moment of reflection for both myself and all of you. I want us to think together about what true love, promises, and most importantly, self-respect really mean. I remember clearly the day I discovered I was pregnant. It was a moment filled with both confusion and joy, as if life had suddenly given me a new purpose, a reason to persevere even as my marriage was crumbling. Have you ever experienced such moments in your own lives? Those instances when, amid what seems like total darkness, a ray of hope suddenly breaks through. That's what my pregnancy was for me. But as you know, my husband's reaction wasn't what I had hoped for. There was no joy in his eyes, no shared happiness. He saw the pregnancy not as a new beginning, but clearly as just another burden. That realization hit me hard. I understood then that I would be walking this path alone. The person I thought would be by my side during life's most important moments simply didn't want to be there. What would you do if you were in my position? How would you react upon realizing that the person you chose to share your life with wouldn't be there during your most crucial moments? Sometimes we convince ourselves that love can overcome anything, that with enough patience and effort, we can change people and make them understand our perspective. But the painful truth is that we can't change anyone. We can only change how we respond to their actions. In that moment, I knew I had to do something for myself and my child. It wasn't an easy decision, nor one I made quickly. It came after many sleepless nights, quiet tears, and conversations with myself, trying to understand how we'd gotten here. Have you ever made a decision knowing it would forever change the course of your life? How did you feel in that moment? Did you doubt yourself? I did. Self-doubt is almost reflexive when facing the unknown. Deciding to get a divorce while pregnant was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I had so many fears and wondered what people would say, how they would judge me. But then I remembered something someone once said, "Your peace of mind is worth more than others' opinions." Those words became my guiding light. I decided to leave behind everything that wasn't good for me. I knew I needed to be strong, not just for myself, but for my child. I wanted to raise my child in an environment where love was real, where words carried weight, and where actions matched promises. So I want to ask you something. What kind of environment do you want for your children, or for yourself? Are you truly surrounded by people who support you? Are you surrounded by people who want the best for you? Or are you, like I once was, trapped in a situation that drains your energy and steals your joy? After giving birth, I felt my life change forever. It wasn't just because I had a child, I had changed too. I became stronger, more decisive, and more aware of what I truly wanted from life. Have you ever experienced a moment when everything suddenly made sense, and you knew exactly what you needed to do? For me, that moment came when I first held my baby. I felt a peace I hadn't known in years, a certainty that everything would be all right no matter what happened. During those first days, watching my baby sleep, I thought about all the things I wanted to teach them. That love isn't something you beg for, that self-respect is paramount, and that you should never settle for less than you deserve. I want them to know their mother made difficult decisions not because they were easy, but because they were right. I want to share something with you about difficult decisions. I didn't choose to confront my ex-husband and his parents for revenge. I did it because I knew I deserved justice. I had worked hard and sacrificed much. And I wasn't going to let that be disregarded. I decided I wouldn't let them keep taking advantage of me. Have you ever stood up to something or someone you knew was wrong? How did it make you feel? For me, it was terrifying but liberating. I reclaimed my power and realized I wasn't that scared person anymore. My in-laws and ex-husband are in a difficult situation now. While some might think I should feel joy, I take no pleasure in their suffering. Instead, I feel a quiet peace, knowing that life has its own way of restoring balance. Have you ever experienced watching those who hurt you face consequences without your intervention? It teaches us that sometimes the best response is to move forward and let karma take its course. And here I am now. It's a new beginning. Not an easy one, but beautiful in its own way. I'm learning to be a mother. Learning to care for this tiny being who depends on me completely. I'm rediscovering who I am, what I want, and where I want to go. What about your journey? What have you discovered about yourself in difficult times? I've learned that life is a series of choices, and each choice leads us where we need to be. Sometimes these choices are painful and difficult, but they're necessary. I have no regrets about my decisions. Every decision has led me to this moment. And now, looking back, I can see how much I've grown. Think about your own life. Are you living the life you want? Or are you trapped in a situation that makes you unhappy? If that's the case, know that you have the power to change it. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but change is possible. What step could you take today to move closer to the life you want? I don't have all the answers, and my path isn't perfect. There are days when I doubt myself, days when I feel overwhelmed and exhausted. But each day is a new chance. A new opportunity to become better, stronger, and build the life I want for myself and my child. I want to thank all of you. Thank you for being here, for listening to my story, and for allowing me to share it with you. I hope my words have resonated with you in some way and given you something to think about. We're all on this journey called life. Though our paths may differ, what we seek is the same: love, happiness, and peace. So let me ask you once more. What do you want? What are you willing to do to get it? Believe in yourself. Life is too short to settle for anything less than what you deserve. Thank you for being here. Let's continue moving forward together.